Welcome back, everyone, to Sophia Room. We have Daniel with us. Daniel is joining us from San Francisco. How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Fine. Really expecting to see what you can bring us about what children can teach us about tech stuff. So, Daniel is bringing us a talk on what kindergarten can teach us about pair programming. So, without any further delays, I'm going to give the stage to you because I'm really curious about this.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Daniel, and today I'm going to give a talk about what kindergarten can teach us about pair programming. So, before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a senior developer advocate at a cloud company in San Francisco called New Relic. We do observability software. And I'm also the president and founder of a 501c3 nonprofit called Bit Project, where we help students from all different backgrounds launch their first app or website, with help. So yeah, a couple of things about me. I'm pretty new to tech. It's my 10th month in tech, so I'm really new, and I have a pretty short attention span. I have ADHD, and I'm pretty fun. So feel free to follow me on Twitter if you're watching this talk. And I'm learning. I've been learning so much while I've been in tech about programming and engineering and software engineering through pair programming. So yeah, I'm super excited to bring this talk to you. So before we get started about like what kindergarten specifically can teach us about pair programming, I want to kind of get into what is pair programming in general. So pair programming is just when two programmers program together on a single piece of code without killing each other. And again, if you kill each other, it is not pair programming. You must not kill each other. So you might be asking, so why are you, Daniel, qualified to give this talk? So there are a couple of reasons. As part of my job at New Relic, I Twitch stream with a bunch of different folks, whether it's students or other engineers on Twitch for my job to teach and learn more about new technologies. And I've learned so much in the hours and hours and hours of pair programming I've done on Twitch on exactly what really drives a really good productive pair programming session. Also, when I was in kindergarten, I did get a Dolphin Plus, which is like the A plus equivalent of kindergarten. So I am really qualified in this realm. So you might be asking, so like, how does pair programming work if you haven't done it already? So in pair programming, there's two main kind of roles. There's the driver, which I've named Gregory. So the driver has the keyboard and the mouse, and they're doing all the programming like on the call. And the navigator is the person who's watching the person that is actually doing the manual coding, who observes, asks questions, suggests solutions, and think about like the longer term kind of strategies of what the program should be. So yeah, now let's get into the meat and potatoes of the talk about what the lessons I learned from kindergarten are and how I can apply the amazing things I learned in kindergarten to my pair programming sessions with engineers and students that I do on a daily basis. So the first lesson I learned when I was in kindergarten, at least, was that sharing is caring. We've all heard this, right? Sharing is caring. I remember when I was in kindergarten, I had a hard time sharing my toys, but through a lot of hard work from both my parents and my teachers, I learned that sharing is really caring. So when you are pair programming and you're working on a single piece of code, you and your partner should be working as one unit, like trying to solve problems together. So if someone is typing, you should not sit back and just like go on Instagram. You should actually figure out like what they're doing and constantly suggest solutions and reviewing what they're writing. And things kind of when things kind of go wrong in a pair programming session, when things don't work, tests don't pass, that's very normal. You might be thinking, well, you made this error, or that bug was caused because something you wrote. That is not very productive. So what we need to do is share responsibility. So instead of saying I or you, we said we made this error in this design, but let's figure out what we can do so we can fix it. So it's really important that both partners own everything and share responsibility in what you do when you pair program. The next lesson I learned when I was in kindergarten was to clean up your mess. I remember when I was in kindergarten, I was very clumsy. So I spilled snacks, I spilled drinks, I spilled everything on the floor. But we always made my teachers always made sure that I got the paper towels and the Clorox wipes and made sure I cleaned up my own mess. And when you're pair programming as an adult or as a student, it's really important that you clean up your own mess. So when you're pair programming, you can see the obvious unnoticed errors that your partners cannot see. So like when you're pair programming, you have someone who's not directly writing the code, so they can kind of notice things or mistakes or messes that you make that can that you can clean up right away. So here are a couple of benefits of having someone to help you clean up your messes. So these are all real scenarios that have happened in my pair programming sessions. I've been asked things like, "Hey, like you forgot the curly braces over there, so that's why it's not compiling," or "You named your variable wrong." This has happened multiple times where I added an extra S or capitalized something, and that's the reason that my 2-hour debugging section was kicked off. So it's really helpful to have a friend there. Also, did you save your file? We've all been in the situation where we were programming something and we were compiling it, and the reason that the new changes weren't being effective was because we didn't save the file. So that's really important, and a friend can definitely help you catch those errors. Also, are you pushing environmental variables to GitHub? This has actually happened to me multiple times where I'm pushing sensitive AWS creds to GitHub, and my friends have almost has caught me almost doing that, and then saved me from a huge AWS bill. Or you seed into the wrong folder. These are all common like messes that you make as a programmer that having a friend and a pair program partner can help you like mitigate right away. So the conclusion in kindergarten terms is that pair programming can help you figure out where you made a boo-boo and help you clean it up. Awesome. The next slide is the next kind of lesson that I learned is that snacks are important. Getting hangry is a real big problem when you're pair programming. Pair programming is really draining because someone is basically keeping you on task at all times. Because if someone's sitting next to you constantly offering solutions or someone's constantly programming, there are no like natural breaks where you're like kind of chilling and not using your brain to your 100% capacity. So it is really important to take breaks and take snack breaks, particularly to maintain your level of focus. So one of the examples I give when I talk about the importance of taking breaks is that when you pair program with so I don't work in production every day. I'm a developer advocate. So when I program with a software engineer, even an hour session, I need to take a 5-minute break in the middle because I cannot maintain that level of focus and productiveness without taking a break, because these people code for a living and they know the thing inside and out. But when you're trying to learn and program at the same time, it uses a lot of your brain power. And honestly, you do need to take breaks to make sure that you really comprehend and take full advantage of the session. So people might be asking, like, what do you do during your breaks? Like, you can eat a snack, but you don't necessarily have to eat a snack. You could like drink coffee or go on Instagram or Facebook, eat some chips, do a Rubik's Cube, go to the playground, etc., etc. So the conclusion is that taking breaks is really important and eating stuff is really important. You don't want to code and pair program with low blood sugar. That is not a pleasant experience for anyone. Awesome. The next lesson I learned is that teamwork makes the dream work. So whenever you're pair programming, especially at a company, usually there's someone that's much senior than you or much more knowledgeable about something than you that you're pair programming with. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're at a higher level, but that they have different skills, knowledge, and experiences. So whenever an engineer at my company, New Relic, gets onboarded to a new team, the onboarding process usually consists of them pair programming with senior engineers who know the product and know the team's like owned code really well. And then it's their job through pair programming to kind of communicate that knowledge to their partner. So it's really important to take advantage of these unique skills of you and your partner and pool your resources together to accomplish a task together. So actually today, I'm actually planning on pair programming with an engineer on the Pixie team to learn more about how their framework works with my software, with just regular the larger product New Relic. And he comes from Pixie, like the startup, and I actually know the product really well. So when we combine our resources together of his expertise of his product and my expertise of the New Relic platform, us pairing together makes a lot of sense because we can both leverage our unique expertise to solve this one bug together. So that's really important. So when two brains focus on the same problem, they'll come up with twice as many possible solutions. Well, it's not exact science, but we can come up with a lot of unique solutions. And then we can use both of our combined brain powers to kind of combine and edit those solutions to find the best solutions. And then once we have that land on that best solution, it's faster and easier to implement it because we have different areas of expertise and we can actually solve it together instead of relying on Stack Overflow and then like a bunch of other questions. So yeah, leveraging everyone's strengths is really important, and making sure that you recognize everyone's strengths and use that to your advantage is really important in pair programming. Yay. Um, the next kind of big topic is really self-evident, I think, and it's very self-explanatory, but also it's very difficult because there's a lot of assholes in when that I've met when I was pair programming, especially in college. And let me elaborate. So working with an asshole, I would call it an asshole, but there are people with bad attitudes. There's different varieties of assholes. Is mentally draining. And the two main types I have encountered in my journey into tech have been the my way or the highway pair programmers, or the egotistical pair programmers. So let me just talk about the first kind. Is the my way or the highway programmers, pair programmers. So these developers think that they are the bee's knees and they don't really consider other ideas or implementations or opinions. And it's also very, very draining and headache inducing to work with. And because when you're pair programming, the whole point of it is to be a collaborative experience where both parties get to contribute and then learn from each other. But if someone's like, hey, I know for a fact that this is the only way that I will even consider doing something, it makes it really draining because it's not collaborative anymore. It's more of a dictatorial thing. So it's really important that, like, when you catch yourself saying things like, that wouldn't work because, or like, this is a bad idea, or like these like very like negative things, try to like instead be like, yes, or try to find a compromise or figure out why that solution might or might not work, and work that compromise with your pair programming partner around design and implementation details. Also, there are people on top of that that are super, super egotistical, that get super defensive when they receive criticism and take things really personally. And when I was in kindergarten, I remember that our class had to make butterfly paintings. And I remember I had a friend in kindergarten who just refused to acknowledge that a handprint did not look like a butterfly. And then when like the teacher pointed that to him, he got super defensive, and I think he cried. I still remember it because I was like, why is this dude so like triggered, you know? But it's really important that you don't take things personally, and you don't get personally offended when someone's like, hey, this could be implemented better, or there's a better way to do something, because it also causes anger issues when people take things really personally for the other person. So please don't be that person that takes it personally and receives design or implementation critiques as personal attacks, because we're all trying to learn from each other when we're pair programming, and it's not productive for anyone if you take things very personally and then you get super upset at the person. Because when I was programming in college, especially, there were a lot of students, when a professor or a fellow student pointed out implementation details, took like, you should have, this function is very inefficient as you are a terrible programmer. And that is just not productive for anyone. And the kind of the final kind of lesson, the biggest lesson, is washing your hands before you start programming. And this is not in the COVID context, because you should definitely wash your hands before anything in the age of the global pandemic. But this is more of a metaphor. So whenever I first pair programmed, I think it was my operating systems class in college. I approached my first pair programming session with a lot of skepticism because I was like, I could do this homework assignment in 35 minutes. Why am I meeting this person in pair programming together? And I was not expecting to enjoy the experience. I had a lot of preconceived notions of what pair programming is and how inefficient I thought it was. And that kind of like starts you off on the wrong foot. So it's really important that you wash your hands of any skepticism, because two skeptical program developers pairing together is a disaster. Because if two people both believe that what they're doing is a waste of time, the likelihood of that programming session being super successful or super productive is very, very low. However, I got super lucky because when I was in college and my ECS, my operating systems class partner was super enthusiastic about pair programming. Even having one excited partner who's experienced in pair programming can lead to pair programming success. So even though I approached the pair programming session with a lot of skepticism, because I had such an enthusiastic partner that was so excited to pair and work on a problem together and communicate and brainstorm ideas to solve this singular problem, it was a super successful session. I learned so much from him because he was willing to share ideas and we'd bounce ideas off each other and would actually implement things together. And that made it so, so awesome. And especially if you're not being forced to pair program in a class, because in this class, our professor actually set up forms for us to pair program together, and it was a requirement for the class. You might be wondering, like, how do I start these kind of natural pair programming relationships? And this is a perfect example of a Slack conversation that I sent to one of our engineers at our nonprofit. It says, hey, Emily, I'm having trouble understanding how to pass the automated checks you have implemented in the serverless repo. Could you hop on a call with me to figure this out? Like, you don't have to define something or call it a pair programming session. It can be as casual as being like, hey, I noticed that you're the last person to commit to this piece of code. I have no idea how this works. Could you hop on a quick call, 10-minute call with me to explain how this works? That could be the start to a really fruitful relationship of information sharing and pair programming. So it's really important to kind of take your opportunities daily when you're a developer or you're working on a project together to really over communicate even and work with your teammates or your fellow colleagues and pair program together in natural context. Because I feel like the best pair programming session I've had is when I'm having a problem and someone's naturally helping me solve it. Like, that started from a Slack conversation being like, hey, I don't understand your code. Let's work on this together. So the conclusion is, if you're pair programming for the first time, approach this session with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of like optimism and like energy to make the session work. I was really lucky to have a partner that did that, but when you have two skeptical people, it usually doesn't end very well. The final lesson that I have is that like kindergarten, because when we went on field trips together, I remember having an accountability buddy where we'd be responsible for our partner being there. And that's really important in pair programming to keep each other accountable. And let me tell you why. We have distractions all around us because we have social media, we have email, we have the bird and the nature outside. That's so beautiful. You know, sometimes when I'm working, I'm like, ooh, I wonder what this person is up to, and just check my phone. Or I'm like, ooh, is there an ice cream truck outside? You know, like, I get distracted on a daily basis. And that leads to less productive lives for us. But when you're pair programming, you're less likely to waste time. And here's why. It's because when someone's sitting there that's continuously providing feedback and providing continuous input, you're probably not going to go in front of them while they're waiting for you to do something or code to go on Instagram and check on how Billy is, what Billy's eating today on their story. You know, that's probably not going to happen. So it's really important that just even having someone there improves your productivity when you're pair programming. And on top of that, on the topic of accountability buddies, they can definitely help you stick to best practices, because we all have these moments. And here's my prime example. So when I commit code, by myself when no one's watching. Here are my last couple of commit messages. We have the famous ASDF, please work. Why isn't this working? Ugh. And the keyboard smash, And this probably wouldn't happen if someone's watching me. Because if I was pair programming, I'd be like, I modified the add customer function to resolve a validation error. So it's really important. It's not even important. It's really good to have someone there that's pair programming with you to make sure that you actually stick to all of the best practices that as a developer you should be doing. But as someone who's programming by themselves, you might be too lazy to follow through on. And a lot of big software errors that happen and bugs that happen are because developers are inherently efficient creatures. And if someone doesn't feel like they have to do certain parts of the procedure, they will most likely skip it. So yeah, that's kind of my 7 lessons that I learned about pair programming from kindergarten. So you might be wondering, why? Why did I give this talk? Because kindergarten for a lot of us was a long time ago, and we probably forgot a lot of the things we learned in kindergarten. Well, it's because pair programming is how I learned how to become a good developer. This was taken last weekend when I went to my friend's graduation, because textbooks can only get you so far. That's what I learned when I was learning to become a developer. I think the best way to learn when you're starting out is to learn from others who have gone through it more than you and who are experts in their own right. And then I want everyone, especially younger generation students and developers, to learn more from each other. And that's why why I'm such an advocate for pair programming as a way to learn and a way to solidify what you know. So yeah, that's kind of why I gave this talk, is because I want everyone to go and pair program more and then learn from each other in their own teams and kind of level each other up and their colleagues. So yeah, that's kind of my talk. And here's my question slide.
Thanks a lot, Daniel. Thank you for that different view on pair programming and different background on what pair programming means and what it represents. I have a question on YouTube here, and this is related to the fact that we are used to a pair programming. We are used to a way of doing pair programming that is no longer the standard, because we are. This is the second year that we spend at home, so the usual way that we did pair programming is now out of the question, at least for now. We hope to get back soon, but right now we don't have that possibility. And we have a question on that, which is, what tools would you recommend for pair programming in terms of collaboration as well as dev tools for remote workers, which is pretty much everyone right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really good question. So I use the VS Code Live plugin to pair program with a Zoom, combined with Zoom usually. But lately I've been trying this app called tuple.app to pair program, and it's been wonderful. And the reason that I started using Tuple is because you can start sending emojis and you can draw on the other person's computer if you're doing web dev, or you can send confetti. You can sprinkle confetti on the on the pair programmer's computer. So I like those whimsical features. But yeah, I used to program on Zoom before I discovered Live Share. And honestly, I think the tool matters less. It matters more the conversation and the energy in the call. But because there's so many different tooling out there right now for pair programming that people have been trying and developing. But yeah, I would recommend LiveShare and Tuple. Those are the 2 services I use when I pair program.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. Actually, you referred that on the call. Many of the pair programming sessions today start with a quick call on, let me know how you did this. And it eventually evolves to someone developing with a shared screen. So that's one of the ways that you can do it right now. But there's a bunch of tools to do it, and you're perfectly right. I guess the energy on that session is more important than the tool we are using for that specifically. So unless I don't think we have any other questions right now. So if that's the case, which I think it is, I'd like to thank you again, Daniel, for the refreshing talk, and we hope to see you again next year, but this time in Coimbra. So you have to fly all the way across the pond to come
That sounds
here.
awesome. I'm so down.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. We'll be back with the session at 7 p.m., so 35 minutes from now. And the session will be about Data Flow, the Easy Way by Maria Arias de Reina Dominguez. So see you in 35 minutes.